Good morning. It's a beautiful day here in the Darling Downs. Bit of a layer of fog this morning, but completely clear skies. So once fog clears, it will be a beautiful, clear day, which we haven't had that many of here. It's been quite a cloudy month, June, and now we're into July, so hopefully we'll get some proper winter conditions finally, because this has been one of the mildest starts to winter that I remember. So, today's video, why Australia is better than New Zealand. I know by that title I've already triggered any Kiwis that are potentially watching this. Now, I want to first of all clarify a few things. Yeah, the title's clickbait, obviously. Which I fully intended to trigger some people, hey? But I just want to say, I'm someone born and raised here in Queensland. I'm an Aussie. And yeah, I'm much more familiar, of course, with how everything works here, because this is where I was born and raised. I've only spent a few weeks in New Zealand as a tourist. I've got friends and family over there. So really some of the things that I'm going to describe and share is drawing based upon what they've told me, and of course just my interactions with Kiwis, learning more about how things work over there. So anyway, with that said, I definitely don't have the full picture. Many of you in the comments can probably fill me in on things that I might say that might not be entirely accurate. And with that said, also, I love New Zealand. I really love New Zealand. I've loved my time there, and honestly, I didn't want to leave. I really didn't want to leave. So I'm going to do another video on all the reasons why New Zealand is better than Australia. I'm going to do that very soon, but I want to be fair and balanced, so I want to go both ways. I'll share why Australia is better than New Zealand. I'll share why New Zealand's better than Australia. So anyway, let's get into the reasons. The reason I'm starting off with this video is because I don't have much time this morning, and there's actually more reasons I can list why New Zealand is better than why Australia is better. However, some of the reasons I will list are very significant, very important, and directly translate into why so many Kiwis choose to move across the ditch. So yeah, let's get straight into it. The number one reason why Australia is better than New Zealand is more job opportunities, which really directly translates into better pay. Better pay, that's the main one. That's probably the most important reason why Australia is better, is more job opportunities and better pay. And that's the number one reason why so many Kiwis, especially young professionals, choose to move over here, because of the better job opportunities and the better pay. Now, I'm originally from a migrant background, and yeah, initially my parents wanted to move to New Zealand rather than Australia, because we have more extended family that are already living over there. And even today, we've got more extended family that live in New Zealand rather than here in Australia. So yeah, my parents actually really wanted to move to New Zealand just to be closer to family when they were immigrating. But yeah, the main reason that they eventually chose Australia was because of the better pay. And this is like 30 years ago now. Like my dad, for example, would have had a job opportunity in New Zealand that he could have taken, but at the same time he had an opportunity here, and because the pay was like significantly better here, he chose to come to Australia instead. So this has been going on for quite a while now, and hasn't always been that way. New Zealand used to be on par with Australia in terms of per capita income, salaries, and for a while, a few decades ago, New Zealand was richer per capita than Australia, although in the last 100 years both have been among the wealthiest countries in the world on a per capita basis. But for one reason or another, I can't answer that. Maybe some of you can tell me. Over the last few decades, New Zealand has lagged behind Australia, especially on income and per capita growth, really economic growth as a whole. So yeah, in terms of job opportunities, Australia definitely does pull ahead, and the pay here is significantly better. And like I said, I really love New Zealand, and if I were to get the right opportunity over there, I would honestly be tempted to move to New Zealand. I really love it that much. Although, with that said, I have to travel more and see more of the country first before I would make a decision like that. But anyway, this isn't about me. This is just about the observations that I've made. And that's a very important reason why Australia is better, is because of the job opportunities. Now let's move on to some other reasons which aren't as important, but yeah, still do play a bit of a role. And another reason why Australia is better is diversity in landscape and climate. This is not something that people will really mention all that much, and I just want to mention New Zealand has some of the most beautiful nature in the world, most beautiful nature I've ever seen. I really enjoyed my time, especially on South Island, and yeah, especially with the Southern Alps. Really, we don't have nature quite like that in Australia. We've got highland regions, we've got mountains, but we don't have those jagged peaks like that. Like being in the Southern Alps, South Island reminded me quite a bit of the European Alps where I visited before, Switzerland, Austria, like areas like that. I've been to the Alps, and it reminded me a bit of that, honestly. Like really beautiful landscapes. New Zealand arguably has a lot more beautiful landscapes, nature packed into a much tighter space. But Australia is an entire continent. We're much bigger than New Zealand, of course, and Australia's got some of the most diverse landscapes and climates in the world. We've got everything. Like a lot of people only really associate Australia with. We got the beaches, of course, along the coast, and then of course outback regions in the interior. But we've got everything really. We've got like up in the north, we've got tropical areas, grasslands, rainforest. We've got more subtropical areas. We've got desert, semi-arid regions, grassland, more temperate areas, highland areas, mountainous regions, alpine regions. Not as much as New Zealand, but we've still got them. So yeah, in terms of landscape and climate, we've got pretty much everything that you can find here in Australia. Like one of the most diverse countries climatically. There's only a few other countries that can really compete or potentially punch a bit above, like other very large countries like US, China, India, so on and so forth, that can really compete with that sheer diversity and biodiversity, landscapes, all that. But yeah, anyway, New Zealand has a lot more packed into a much tighter space, arguably. But still, like, yeah, I love visiting all the different regions of Australia, outback, like, yeah. New Zealand can't quite compete on that due to its much smaller size. But yeah, that's just an observation I've made. This is not to talk down on New Zealand's nature at all. Again, my personal favorite is I love mountainous areas. I love alpine regions, snow, cooler areas. So yeah, I'm a bit biased in that sense actually towards some of the landscapes in New Zealand. But at the same time, like, it's really cool to be able to just jump in your car and just drive a few hours, and then you're in a completely different area, which you do get in New Zealand as well, like North Island, South Island. I found they're very different, but like, yeah, Australia, you're within the one country or even within the same state. You can go from like highland areas, greenery, rainforest, to desert just within like a few hours, like dramatic changes. So yeah, that's another factor. What else? The third area, which is, I'm surprised to ever be praising Australia in this area. Third way in which Australia is better than New Zealand, which I'm very surprised about. Public transport. Now, I live in regional area. I live in rural Queensland, and public transport is absolutely atrocious out here. Go to any regional area in Australia, especially Queensland. But I can't speak so much for other states. Like I haven't left the eastern states, right? Like I can only speak for like Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, so on and so forth. The eastern states. Okay, I can't speak for the other states, but I can imagine it's not much better really than here. So yeah, especially Queensland, public transport in regional areas is absolutely atrocious. There's nothing much here. Like I live in a small town. We've got no bus, no train. You're pretty much without a car. You're pretty much stranded. So regional areas, definitely terrible public transport. New South Wales is definitely a step up compared to Queensland in public transport. Like I've driven through quite a few regional towns that are far away from, say, Sydney, that still have functional rail links, and yeah, many of these towns out here also have rail links, but it's only freight, doesn't do passengers anymore. So yeah, anyway, I'm not saying Australia has good public transport. We are definitely way behind many other parts of the world, like certainly not on the level of Europe, but I was really surprised. New Zealand is definitely lagging a lot on public transport, especially when you compare the big cities. And that's more so what I'm speaking of here. Regional areas, Australia, terrible public transport. But when you look at the big cities, Sydney, Melbourne, even Brisbane, public transport is much better compared to large cities in New Zealand, which really, Auckland's the only large city in New Zealand that compares in size to, say, Brisbane. It's slightly smaller than Brisbane. Adelaide would be a good comparison because they're the same size, but like Sydney used to have really bad traffic. I mean, still has bad traffic, still is congested, but it's definitely not as bad as it used to be. Like Sydney's public transport has really improved a lot in the last few years, especially with since the opening of the metro, the light rail. There's a lot more options now. I remember back when Sydney didn't have light rail, metro, like it was just terrible, very congested. But Melbourne's always been probably the best city in Australia for public transport, or it was. The tram network is very good. It's one of the largest tram networks in the world. I think in some stats it shows Melbourne's tram network as the largest in terms of kilometers of track. So yeah, so Melbourne's got the trams, of course. They have also got their new metro link that's open now. Just more options in terms of trains and all that. I would say, based on my most recent visits to Sydney and Melbourne, I would say Sydney's probably the best now in terms of public transport, which would make some people laugh, but no, really, like the metro in Sydney, it was really, really good. I found the trains and train links, bus links, everything worked really well. It was very easy to get around actually without a car in Sydney. That's what I found. Melbourne also very good. Melbourne and Sydney definitely the best public transport. Brisbane did lag behind a bit, but I can't really speak too much on Brisbane. I need to go visit there. Like there's a few things have changed since I last visited. Queensland now does have the cheapest public transport. We've got 50-cent flat fares, so that makes a big difference, of course. So anyway, Australia has been, especially in the big cities, has rapidly been improving public transport. Even the Gold Coast, where I'm originally from, they just extended the light rail. So yeah, that's, especially in the cities, yes, our public transport is improving a lot. And yeah, look, Auckland, which is New Zealand's really the only large city in New Zealand with a population above 1 million, which is really small by some international standards still. New Zealand doesn't really have any very large cities. Auckland is the largest, 1.8 million. It's about the size of Adelaide, slightly smaller than Brisbane. But yeah, really the only large city where you can sort of make this comparison for. And I must say, Auckland, public transport is really, really bad, really lagging. There's not many options to get around without a car. You've got Auckland Metro, which is like a bus system, and there is meant to be like more rail links and all that coming. But yeah, there's a few. Auckland has a lot of challenges in terms of its geography, of course. It's like an isthmus, surrounded on two sides by water, very narrow, so that naturally creates some bottlenecks, especially around the harbour bridge, where traffic gets really bad during peak hour. And yeah, a few times I got to experience firsthand just how bad the Auckland traffic can get. And I was really surprised because, like, again, Auckland's a lot smaller than, say, Sydney, Melbourne. Sydney and Melbourne. Like, I've driven around Sydney a bit, and yeah, Sydney gets bad traffic as well. It used to be a lot worse before more people had access to public transport, but wow, let me say, Auckland is another level. And I was looking at some stats. Auckland is among the more congested cities in the world. Like one report I saw ranked Auckland as the 14th worst congested city in the world, which, considering its relatively small size, it was quite surprising. But geography plays a major role, and yeah, the lack of public transport options really does influence that as well. Like, you need a car to get around, but because of geography, there's bottlenecks, and yeah, that means traffic is really, really bad, especially during peak hour. Like on a regular day, for example, where I was staying in Auckland, I've got extended family there. When I was staying at my uncle's place, right, it's only like usually 10 minutes to across the harbour bridge to the centre, when there's no peak hour traffic. But I was stuck on peak hour traffic, and it took like well over an hour, almost like 90 minutes to get home. That's how bad the traffic got. So yeah, Australia is definitely better in terms of having more public transport options in our big cities. That's improved a lot. So especially Auckland really needs to up its game on that. I know you've had like I know there's meant to be light rail and all this stuff coming, but yeah, really need to get a move on with that. So yeah, that's really everything. That's really all the areas I can list where Australia is better than New Zealand. Job opportunities and pay, most important one, and that's why so many Kiwis move here. Public transport, yep, and diversity in landscape and climate, but that's entirely subjective really. But that's really it. That is really it. I can't list anything else in terms of why Australia is better. Yeah, I mean, okay, this sort of goes into the nature point. Like, yeah, we have better beaches, okay? We have better beaches. New Zealand has some very nice beaches as well. But yeah, okay, Australia has some of the best beaches in the world, which, look, I'm more like mountains and forests rather than beaches. I'm not such a fan of beaches. It doesn't really bother me that much. But some people really like the beach, so in that case, you can't really beat Australia. So this is all the areas I can list on where Australia is better than New Zealand. Really only a few points, which can be very important to some people, of course, and arguably job opportunities and pay. That is very, very important. So yeah, that pretty much can be a reason that would override anything else I can list the other way. But anyway, rest assured, I will do a video soon on why New Zealand is better than Australia. List all the reasons. And honestly, even after my short time there, I can actually list a lot more reasons why New Zealand is better than Australia. Like honestly, like I really expected, like, yes, I knew the nature is beautiful. I knew I'd love that. I knew that certain parts of the country that I would really enjoy. But yeah, some of these things that I will list in an upcoming video, I didn't expect, really. It surprised me. New Zealand really did surprise me. Like, I sort of thought, yeah, you know, have different landscapes and all that, but I thought it will pretty much be the same as Australia. And look, very similar culture, very similar, yeah, very similar systems in terms of like how things work, how things run. There's no culture shock going from one country to another. But with that said, there are some interesting quirks, interesting differences that did surprise me. And yeah, honestly, Australia and New Zealand are a lot more different than I initially thought. And when I give my next video on this topic, yeah, it'll become easier to understand why that's the case. But yeah, anyway, this is just me rambling on about why Australia is better than New Zealand. In the future, yeah, very soon I will go the other way. I will say why New Zealand is better. So I want to be fair and balanced as possible. And look, there'll be people that will accuse me, oh, you're Aussie, you're biased. Actually, yes, I am biased. Totally am biased. I'm not going to deny that. We are all biased. We're all biased. I am totally biased. Yeah, I'm not going to try to defend that. But anyway, with that out of the way, right? I will try to be as fair, as balanced as possible. It won't always happen, right? I'm human. I have my own bias. We all do. I'm not one of those people that says, oh, you know, I'm totally impartial. I'm not biased. No, I am biased. Totally biased. And I'll always be honest about that in these videos. But yeah, that's it. Hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. Onwards and upwards.